Hi everyone, Eric Nelson here once again, and thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. For today, I am back with another book review on Cat Nicolaou's Life, Love, and Death. Now, once again, she has released a book that has a collection of short stories, but unlike her other one, Hearts and Other Dead Things, all of these short stories is written by her. Now, in the last week's review of that book, I said that that was my favorite collection of short stories, and it actually still is. And I'm not saying that this book is bad or anything. It's far from being bad, but it's more close to being like Hearts and Other Dead Things. Why I say Hearts and Other Dead Things is my favorite still is because it was a lot easier to follow. And even though this book is as well, there are some confusing moments. But at the same time, I was still entertained by all of the short stories because all of the characters were really interesting to read about, as well as the settings and everything else. Now, of course, if that is a turnoff for you, you still need to remember of all the classic stories out there that have more than their fair share of confusing moments. So in the first short story, The Island of Bliss, a man begins his morning with his ritual of having a cup of coffee. Except after when he takes his first sip, he begins to see the world outside of his house more beautiful than it ever has before. So I was wondering what was actually in that cup of coffee. Now, when he hears his love calling him, he sees himself as a woman, but then goes back to his old self. After that happens, he begins to prepare for her arrival. How he prepares is a little confusing to follow, but at the same time you are still being entertained about how much detail he goes into his preparations. And reading this first one was almost like watching characters from Alice in Wonderland getting ready for an event. The next one, on Fear and All, a little girl named Jane wakes up from a bad nightmare and gets the image, and she can't get the images out of that nightmare out of her head. She is afraid that they are real and live outside of her nightmare. Now her grandfather tells her not to be afraid and instead be happy that you have life and that you have it so easy. But will she listen? The results are pretty funny. On a rainy day, Harold and Maggie are in their late 60s and are living in their summer house. Harold's physician, however, has put him on a strict diet, and Maggie forces him to follow it 110%. The diet, however, is killing him since he was always able to eat anything he wanted before he was put on that strict diet. Now, when he thinks that she's finally going to give him a break for dinner after smelling something nice coming from the kitchen, he rushes in there to find out what it is. Now, will the results lead to something delicious or something deadly? Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I'm sorry. I actually got something caught in my throat. But anyway, The next one, and we used to talk. I have to give a little bit of a little bit of a spoiler here because there really is no other way for me to describe this. So if you don't want to listen to it, just probably skip at least 15 seconds right from here. Basically, it's hard to forgive and forget sometimes. But is it easier when the person is actually dead? In the treehouse, Caitlin is on the run with her son Jacob. They are running away from her monstrous and shady husband, Nick. Now, it's never clear as to what Nick actually did to her, but whatever Caitlin overheard, it makes her overheard of what he does outside of their marriage. It makes her very paranoid. And after they find a motel to hide out for the night, she all throughout the night and into the next morning, she becomes suspicious that he is nearby and closing in. And when a threat occurs, she does what she can to protect herself and her son, and she wins the fight against the threat. But will it lead her further away from Nick, or will it bring her closer to him? And who is the villain really? Is it Nick, or is it someone else? In She Only Thought I Was Dead, we see why many of us are afraid of dying alone. Now, it's easy to agree that dying alone is a horrible thing, but like many things, you won't know for sure what your true feelings are about something unless you actually lived it yourself. In the next one, Clay Soldiers, we see that Meredith is an old woman who has shut herself off from society, and after the death of her son and her husband. To make herself not feel lonely, she does Pottery Barn. Before she shut herself off from the town, she made beautiful sculptures with her pottery and sold them. Now, because of her old age and weakness, she's unable to do pottery the way she wants to. But then she develops some energy to do it again when her granddaughter is about to get married and wants to make bowls for her as a wedding present. She also wants to leave her house for the first time in a long time and make it to the wedding herself. Now that seems innocent enough, right? Wrong. Remember the title of this, Clay Soldiers. Now, when you read the first part of High Heels, Stalking, and Murder, you will at first think that this is told through the point of view of a peeper or a stalker. When you read the ending, you will be very unsympathetic to the victim. In The Last Kiss, you will find a story that hits home real good for the bad. Now, whether you knew your grandparents or not, you will still produce a few tears. In the next one, The Night Caller, you will learn a good lesson. Always lock your doors if you're alone. The radio personality isn't enough to protect you. In A Midnight Date, you might be fooled into thinking that this story is a dream because it's painfully unrealistic in the dating world. Once you read the twist, however, you will love it. In Love Like Thorn, you will learn that it's okay to get involved with someone who wants to better you and change you for the good. But just remember not to be too restrictive to only their demands, because if they leave your life, what will you do then? In Hotel California, A Tribute, we read the dark version of the famous Eagles song. In The Last Breath of Winter, we are reminded that most people love the feeling of seasons changing, but what if you had only one more chance to feel that feeling, whether you loved it or hated it? In An Unexpected Meeting, Ellie needs to go to the airport to go to Greece for Christmas to see her grandparents, but a bum named Michael stands in her way. He wants her badly. He wants to be her destiny. He tricks her into letting him use her bathroom, and while he's in there, he changes his appearance, and his good new looks hypnotizes her and lures her into believing that he's her protector. But is he really? And whose side of this story is the real one? In Red Lips, I must remind you of the famous quotes from the movie Batman Returns. Mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it, but a kiss can be even deadlier if you mean it. The second quote is better explained in this story. In Jack in the Box, you will learn that it is very important to spend as much time with your grandparents as possible. Most times you just never know how much you are as a grandchild, what you mean to them as a grandchild. They love you to pieces. They probably love you more than they do their own sons or daughters who are your parents. In Revolution Immediate, Simon, or that's what he calls himself, is living in the year 2020 in an undisclosed location. Here he talks about the end of the world and that how all the signs of it coming were always visible to the people, but that no one paid attention, as if nobody really cared. We also find out that Simon is a slave of the system that caused the end of the world to happen, but that he escaped. So does this mean in the year 2016, is it too late, or can we do something to at least postpone the end of the world? So you can get this book anywhere, and I hope to see you all at the bookstore or the iBookstore.